The email from my sister, Sarah, landed in my inbox like a grenade. The wedding is in 3 months. I've sent invitations to everyone, including Mom and Dad. A cold knot twisted in my stomach. Sarah and I hadn't spoken properly in 5 years, not since I took what was rightfully mine. It wasn't just a house. It was the symbol of our family's legacy, the one thing our late father had promised me, not her. Growing up, Sarah was the golden child, the one who excelled in school, who had a flawless reputation. I was the rebellious one, always in her shadow. When Dad's health began to fail, he promised me the old family house, a beautiful Victorian home in the heart of San Francisco. But he never put it in the will. A simple oversight, he said. "It's yours, Lily," he'd told me, his voice frail. "Your sister will understand." But she didn't. When the will was read, Sarah was named the sole inheritor of the house. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. I spent months battling her in court, using every legal loophole and every underhanded trick I could find. And I won. The house was mine, and Sarah's trust was broken beyond repair. She refused to speak to me, and our family, once close-knit, was torn apart. Now her wedding, a chance to show her I had moved on, that I was happy. But the real goal was to make a statement. I wanted to remind her of what I had and what she had lost. The perfect seating plan came to mind, a subtle act of revenge that would be a silent scream of my triumph. I would give Mom the best seat, a perfect view of the ceremony. But then, at the last minute, I would move her. Just a little joke. A power play to show them who was in control, and a way to remind Sarah that I still held the cards. "You'll have the best view of the ceremony," I'd say to Mom, a smile plastered on my face. She'd believe me. They all would. Thank you for watching the first part of this story. If you're enjoying it, please make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the rest of the chapters. The wedding invitation was a work of art, elegant and understated, just like Sarah. I picked a navy blue dress, simple but sophisticated, something that screamed, "I'm doing well," without being too flashy. My phone buzzed. It was a group chat with my mother and Sarah. Sarah had created it to discuss logistics, a cold and detached way of communicating. "Mom, I've reserved the front row seat for you," Sarah typed. "You'll have the best view of the ceremony." I smirked. That's what she thought. "That's so thoughtful, Sarah," I typed back, my fingers flying over the keyboard. "Mom deserves it." I called Mom later that night. "Lily, are you sure you're coming?" she asked, her voice tinged with a hope I hadn't heard in years. "Of course, Mom," I said, a sugary sweetness in my tone. I wouldn't miss it for the world. In fact, I'm already planning my outfit. It's going to be a beautiful day. "I'm so glad," she sighed. "I just want my 2 girls to be together again." "Me too, Mom," I lied. The truth was, I wasn't there for a reconciliation. I was there to remind everyone of the price of betrayal. The plan was simple yet effective. I'd arrive at the venue early, scout the seating, and find the perfect spot for Mom. The front row, right in the center, just as Sarah had planned. But just before the ceremony started, I'd feign a mix-up, a last-minute change. I'd move her seat. Not far, just a few feet to the side, right behind a large, ornate pillar. The view would be completely blocked. She wouldn't be able to see a thing. A small price to pay for what I had endured, I reasoned. She never took my side. She never fought for me when Sarah and I were fighting over the house. She stayed silent, a neutral party, which was, in my book, the same as siding with Sarah. This was my moment. My moment to show them all that silence and inaction have consequences. My moment to prove that I was no longer the one in the shadows. The wedding day dawned crisp and clear, a perfect autumn day in San Francisco. The old stone church where Sarah was getting married was a grand structure with towering Gothic windows and heavy wooden doors. The air was filled with a nervous energy as guests began to arrive. I made my way inside early, a half hour before the ceremony was set to begin. I spotted the seating chart. A small, elegant card with "Reserved for the mother of the bride" was on a chair in the very front row. The perfect mark. I took out a small, ornate card I had made at home and swapped it, placing it on a chair in the third row, almost directly behind a massive decorative column. The chair was angled just enough that the pillar would block the view of the altar entirely. Then, I found the reserved card and tucked it into my purse. A little souvenir. My mother arrived, her face glowing. "Lily," she said, her arms wrapping around me in a tight embrace. "You came." "I told you I would, Mom." I smiled, a cold, practiced smile. "Come on, I'll take you to your seat. It's the best one in the house." She followed me obediently, her hand in mine, as I led her past the front row and toward the third. "Oh, Lily, what's this?" she asked, a flicker of confusion in her eyes as she saw the card I had placed. "There was a last-minute change, Mom," I lied smoothly. "Some sort of mix-up. But don't worry, you'll have a great view from here." She frowned, but her face softened as she looked at me. "All right, sweetie, as long as I'm with you." The other guests were beginning to arrive, and I saw a flash of movement out of the corner of my eye. It was Sarah, in her wedding dress, peeking out from a side room. She looked so happy, so radiant, and for a fleeting second, a wave of something akin to regret washed over me. But then I pushed it down, reminding myself of the empty house I had to fight for, the years of feeling second best. No. This was what she deserved. The pain I had felt, I was now delivering back to her. A fair exchange. The organ music swelled, and the ceremony began. My mother, seated in her designated spot, was straining her neck, trying to see past the large wooden column. She kept leaning forward, shifting from side to side, but the column, as I had planned, was perfectly positioned to obstruct her view. She couldn't see Sarah walk down the aisle. She couldn't see the radiant smile on her daughter's face. She couldn't see the love in her eyes as she looked at her husband-to-be. A few minutes into the ceremony, she leaned over and whispered, "Lily, I can't see anything. Is this really the best seat?" "It's the only one left, Mom," I whispered back, my voice laced with a feigned frustration. "The whole thing is a mess." A sigh escaped her lips, a small, sad sound that felt like a punch to my stomach, but I ignored it. This was for her, for Sarah, for all of them. This was my statement. This was my victory. I looked at Sarah, who was standing at the altar. She looked stunning. Her long white dress cascaded to the floor, and her face was lit up with joy. She was happy, and that made me furious. How could she be so happy after what she had done to me? She had the house, she had the family, she had the perfect life. And I had a chair behind a column. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness hit me. The air in the church felt heavy and suffocating. I closed my eyes, trying to compose myself. But the image of my mother straining her neck, her face etched with disappointment, kept flashing in my mind. It was a fleeting moment of empathy, a crack in my carefully constructed facade. But I pushed it away. No, this was right. This was just. This was what I deserved. Hope you are enjoying the story so far. To see how it all ends, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. We'll be posting new parts of this story and more soon. After the ceremony, the reception was a whirl of champagne toasts and well wishes. Sarah and her new husband, Mark, were the center of attention, their faces glowing with a happiness that felt like a slap in the face. My mother, who had finally gotten a chance to see Sarah up close, was beaming, but I could still see a faint shadow of disappointment in her eyes. "Lily, I can't believe you did that," my cousin Jessica said, her voice low and tight. Did you really move Mom's seat? I saw her trying to see around that pillar all through the ceremony. What are you talking about? I feigned ignorance. There was a mix-up with the seating. You know how these things are. Don't play dumb with me, Lily, she said, her eyes narrowed. I know what you're doing, and it's not going to end well for you. I brushed her off, walking away to get another glass of champagne. But her words, "It's not going to end well for you," echoed in my mind. I was beginning to feel a sense of unease. The victory I had felt earlier was now fading, replaced by a nagging sense of dread. I saw my mother, now at a table with a few aunts and uncles, and I saw the way she looked at me. It wasn't with anger. It was with sadness. She had loved me unconditionally, and I had repaid her with a cruel, petty act. But I couldn't admit it. My pride wouldn't let me. As the night wore on, I found myself alone more and more. I saw Sarah, laughing and dancing with her new husband, and I saw my mother, her face filled with an unadulterated joy that I had robbed her of earlier. The anger I had felt was now replaced with a bitter taste of regret. What had I gained? A moment of fleeting revenge, a small, hollow victory. And what had I lost? The trust of my family, the love of my mother, the chance to mend my relationship with my sister. The next day, I woke up with a pounding headache and a gnawing sense of emptiness. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. "Thanks for coming to the wedding, Lily. I'm glad you were there." The message was simple, but it felt like a punch to the gut. She was being the bigger person. She was offering an olive branch, and I had stomped on it. I called Mom. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. Her voice was tired, distant. "Hello, Lily." "Mom, I'm sorry about the seating," I said, the words catching in my throat. "It was a mistake. I should have told you." "It's not about the seat, Lily," she said, her voice cracking. "It's about the reason. Why would you do that to me, to Sarah? We just wanted you to be a part of it." I don't know," I stammered, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. "I was just angry. About the house. About everything." "The house is just a house, Lily," she said, a sad sigh escaping her lips. "What you did, that's something else entirely. You have to live with that." She hung up, and the silence that followed was deafening. Her words, "You have to live with that," echoed in my mind, and I knew she was right. My act of revenge had not brought me any satisfaction. It had only brought me more pain, more guilt. I sat on the couch, my head in my hands, and I started to cry. Not the angry, frustrated tears of the past, but the deep, soul-shattering sobs of a woman who had finally realized the true cost of her actions. I had lost the house, yes, but I had lost so much more. I had lost my family, and the truth was, no amount of revenge could ever fill that void. Days turned into weeks, and the silence from my family was deafening. I tried to reach out, to apologize, but my calls and texts went unanswered. The house, the very thing I had fought so hard for, now felt like a prison. The beautiful Victorian home was filled with ghosts of a past I had destroyed. I walked through the empty rooms, the polished floors, and the grand staircase, and all I could feel was regret. One afternoon I received a letter in the mail. It was from a law firm. I opened it, my heart pounding in my chest. It was a formal notice. My neighbors had filed a complaint against me for a series of zoning violations I had knowingly ignored. They wanted to build a new addition to their house, which would be right up against my property line, blocking all of my windows on one side. I had a week to respond, or I would have to face a lawsuit. I panicked. I called my lawyer, the same one who had helped me with the house lawsuit. He was sympathetic, but his voice was grave. "Lily, this is a mess. You're going to have to spend a lot of money to fight this. And even then, There's no guarantee you'll win. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach. The money I had spent on the house, the money I had spent on the lawyers, was all gone. I had nothing left to fight with. I had won the battle, but I was losing the war. I had the house, but I was about to lose my peace of mind, and I had no one to turn to. My friends had slowly drifted away, tired of my constant bitterness, and my family, I had pushed them away. I sat in the middle of the living room, the one with the big bay windows, and I looked out at the empty street. The house, my trophy, was now a constant reminder of my failures. The very thing I had believed would bring me happiness had only brought me ruin. I had the house, but I had lost everything that mattered. We're in the final stretch. The story is reaching its climax, and things are about to change for Lily. To see the unforgettable conclusion, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. The following days were a blur of legal documents, meetings with lawyers, and a crushing sense of isolation. I tried to sell the house, but with the impending legal issues, no one was interested. The house was a liability, a drain on my resources. I was sitting in my living room, surrounded by unpacked boxes and a mountain of bills, when my phone rang. It was Sarah. My heart leaped in my chest. "Hello?" I said, my voice trembling. "Lily, it's me," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I know you're in trouble," Mom told me. A wave of humiliation washed over me. I had thought I was so clever, so in control, but my mother, my sister, they knew everything. I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered. "Don't lie, Lily," she said, a hint of sadness in her tone. "It's the lawsuit, isn't it? The zoning issue." How do you know?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I have friends who are lawyers," she said simply. "They told me about the case. They said you're in a bad position." "I am," I admitted, my voice breaking. "I have no money to fight it. I'm going to lose the house." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I thought she would gloat, that she would finally have her moment of triumph. But when she spoke, her voice was full of a genuine sorrow. "Lily, I'm sorry. I really am." "Why?" I asked, the tears now streaming down my face. "Why are you sorry? You should be happy. You should be telling me I told you so." "Because I love you, Lily," she said, her voice filled with a pain that matched my own. "You're my sister, and I don't want to see you lose everything." I hung up the phone and cried, not out of anger, but out of a profound and heartbreaking realization. I had been so focused on winning, on getting what I thought I deserved, that I had lost sight of the one thing that truly mattered: my family. The next day, I received an email from Sarah. It was a detailed document, a legal brief outlining a new strategy to fight the lawsuit. It was brilliant, a loophole I had never considered. Attached to it was a short message. "Use this. It's the best I can do. I still can't face you right now, but I want you to have a chance." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. She was helping me. After everything I had done, she was helping me. I spent the next few days working on the legal brief, my mind completely focused. The work was hard, but for the first time in months, I felt a sense of purpose. I wasn't fighting to win. I was fighting to survive. A week later, I was in court. I stood before the judge, my voice trembling as I presented the brief. My neighbor's lawyers, confident and smug, were caught completely off guard. The judge listened carefully, his face unreadable. At the end of my presentation, he looked at me and said, "Ms. Miller, you have presented a very compelling argument. I'm ruling in your favor." A wave of relief washed over me. I had won. But the victory felt hollow. I had won the house, but I had lost so much more. I walked out of the courtroom, and I saw a woman sitting on a bench in the hallway. It was my mother. She stood up as I approached. "I just wanted to see you," she said, her eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay." "Mom," I said, the words catching in my throat. I couldn't speak. I couldn't explain. I just hugged her, my arms wrapped around her tightly. And for the first time in years, I felt a real, genuine peace. The day after the court ruling, I went to my mother's house. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding in my chest. My mother opened the door, a sad smile on her face. She led me to the living room, where Sarah was sitting on the couch. I stood there, a mess of tangled emotions. Sarah looked up, her eyes soft and tired. "Hi, Lily," she said, her voice a whisper. "Hi," I said, my voice barely audible. I came to thank you for the brief, for helping me." "You don't have to thank me," she said, her eyes never leaving mine. "You're my sister. I couldn't just stand by and watch you lose everything." "I'm so sorry, Sarah," I said, my voice breaking. "For everything. For the house. For Mom's seat at the wedding. For being such a horrible person." "I know," she said, and a tear rolled down her cheek. "I know you're sorry, and I forgive you." I walked over to the couch and sat down next to her. I took her hand in mine, and for the first time in 5 years, we were sisters again. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't talk about the house. We talked about the future. The next day, I put the house on the market. It was a beautiful house, and I had fought so hard for it, but I knew I couldn't live there. Not anymore. It was a monument to my greed, to my bitterness, to my mistakes. I sold it, and with the money, I bought a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. The first person I invited over was my mother. She sat on my new couch, a small smile on her face, and she looked at me with an unadulterated love I hadn't seen in years. "It's so much more you, Lily," she said, her voice filled with a genuine warmth. "I know," I said. And for the first time in a long time, I was genuinely happy. I had a new apartment, but more importantly, I had a new perspective. I had learned the hard way that winning at all costs isn't winning at all. I had learned that some things, like family, are worth more than any house, any amount of money, or any petty revenge. The journey had been long and painful, but in the end, I had found what I had been searching for all along. A place to call home, not just for myself, but for the broken parts of my heart, where I could finally start to heal. And that's the end of our story. We hope you enjoyed it, and that it showed you the true meaning of family. If you did, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. We'll be back soon with more stories. Thank you for watching.